change this as well. All right, so let's start with this. So this was the chart that I showed you yesterday, that how do you decide which transformation is there in a particular problem. So this is the way to think about it, right? So सबसे पहली चीज जो आपको clearly नजर आनी चाहिए, that is whether the size of the shape that you have, size of the figures that you have, has that changed or not? Is the size same or not? If the size is not the same, that means it's going to be an enlargement, right? अगर size same नहीं है तो तब तो clear cut choice है आपके पास, it's going to be enlargement, या बड़ी हो रही है figure या छोटी हो रही है. In either case it's an enlargement. और उसमें आप दो चीजें उसमें mention करेंगे. One is the scale factor. उसका scale factor क्या है? And the other thing that you have to tell is what is the center of enlargement. Okay, so you have to figure those things out. We discussed things yesterday कि आप किस तरह से दोनों चीजें figure out कर सकते हो. All right. Achha. Now, if the size happens to be the same, what do you do in that case? Then you have the other three transformations that are possible: translation, reflection, and rotation. Now, the next question आप पूछोगे, that will be whether the orientation is the same or not. ठीक है, तो figure की direction जो है वो क्या वो tilt हो गई है? Is there any tilt in the figure or not? Or is it the same orientation? That's the next question that you ask yourself. If the orientation is the same, यानी कि अगर आपकी figure for example पहले इस तरह थी इस shape के अंदर, right? तो बाद में भी क्या हुआ है? It's in the same orientation. बाद में भी वो उसी orientation के अंदर है, कहीं और भी चली गई है, but it's the same orientation, right? उसकी tilt नहीं हुआ बिल्कुल भी, okay? So इसको हम कहते हैं there is a shift in the figure. Figure उठा के कहीं और चले गई है. There is a shift. This is called a translation, right? यहाँ पे size भी same है और orientation भी same है, okay? Then that's a translation. Now, if this question is answered by a no here, the size same है और orientation same नहीं है, right? So हो सकता है आपकी figure जो है दूसरी figure it maybe looks like this, something like this, right? I don't know. So maybe something like this. Orientation change हो गई है, okay? What happens in that case? Now there are going to be two choices there. There are going to be two choices there. एक तो आपके पास choice है that it's a reflection or it's going to be a rotation. इसमें से कोई हो सकती है, ठीक है? अब आप क्या करोगे? आप corresponding points को straight line से join कर दोगे. So for instance, if I had this graph here, इस पे जो 90 degrees वाला point है, अगर उसको A कह लूं मैं, उसके बाद जो उसके पास longer side है that's B and the smaller side that's C. If this is the triangle that I have and the image looks something like this, if this is the image, it's a relatively straightforward example, but it makes you understand the concept. तो यहाँ पे आप देखेंगे दूसरी फिगर के अंदर corresponding points कौन से होंगे? जहाँ पे इधर 90 आ रहा था, दूसरी फिगर में 90 किधर आ रहा है? यहाँ पे that's going to be your point A. अच्छा, A के साथ जो longer side थी, there you have point B and the other point is C after that. What you do is you join corresponding points. ठीक है? यहाँ पे corresponding points को join करते हैं straight lines के साथ. Let's use black lines for that. A और A dash को join कर दिया. इसमें मैं dash लगा दूँ यहाँ पे. You've got B dash here, A dash here, C dash here. That's the image. Now, if I were to join the corresponding points B and B dash, A and A dash, and C and C dash, these lines come out to be parallel to each other. These are all parallel lines. ठीक है? A की direction के अंदर है. If that is the case, it's going to be a reflection. अगर आपकी lines parallel आ जाती हैं, वो reflection होगी. Reflection के अंदर remember आपको क्या बताना होता है? आपको बताना होता है कि line of reflection क्या है. फिर आप उसकी line of reflection find करोगे. उसका हमने तरीका discuss किया था. Mid points निकाल लेंगे, उनको join कर देंगे. So, यहाँ पे आपको line of reflection बतानी होगी. अगर ये parallel नहीं आती, ये आप lines join करोगे, अगर वो parallel नहीं आती, then it's a rotation. Rotation में फिर आपको दो चीजें बतानी होती हैं. You have to tell what is the angle and whether it's clockwise or anti-clockwise. Clockwise or anti-clockwise angle बताना है आपने, right? We've discussed these things in the last session. ये आप किस तरह से निकालते हो? And you have to tell what the center of rotation is. ठीक है? और इस तरह translation के अंदर आपको वो vector बताना होता है. इसके अंदर आपको क्या करना होता है, आपको वेक्टर बताना होता है, कॉलम वेक्टर इस फॉर्म के अंदर वो क्या होएगा, x कंपोनेंट क्या है, y कंपोनेंट क्या है, राइट. सो दैट्स हाउ यू थिंक अबाउट ट्रांसफॉर्मेशंस. अब जब आपने आइडेंटिफाई करना होता है कि कौन सी ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन है, दिस इज द फ्लो चार्ट दैट यू कैन फॉलो. साइज का पहले देखें, ओरिएंटेशन का देखें, और अगर उसके बाद फिर आप ट्रांसलेशन एनलार्जमेंट दोनों नहीं है, फिर आप ये कॉरेस्पॉन्डिंग पॉइंट्स को स्ट्रेट लाइन से जॉइन कर दें. अगर वो पैरेलल आ जाते हैं इट्स अ रिफ्लेक्शन, अगर पैरेलल नहीं आते हैं इट्स अ रोटेशन. Okay, so that's what we discussed yesterday. Now let's move on to matrices after this. Walaikum assalam everyone. Manur, Rahman, Noor, and Yusuf. Yes, Manur, tracing paper is allowed. So if you've learned transformations using a tracing paper, that's perfectly okay. You can use that in the exam. So that is allowed. Okay, उसमें कोई मसला नहीं है. You can use that. All right. Okay. Now let's move on to matrix transformations. Now matrix transformations के लिए you need to have your matrix concepts, right? Multiplication आपको आनी चाहिए उसके अंदर, matrix multiplication. But let's start with this. आपको कौन-कौन से different transformations से deal करना पड़ सकता है matrix से related. So let's write those down here one by one. अच्छा, एक तो आपको पता, अच्छा ट्रांसलेशन का कोई मैट्रिक्स नहीं होता. सो ट्रांसलेशन का इसका कोई मैट्रिक्स नहीं होता, इसका आपके पास वही वेक्टर ही होता है, राइट, एक्स वाई वेक्टर. इसका ट्रांसलेशन का मैट्रिसेस में कोई काम नहीं है. ओके. अच्छा, बाकी जो तीनों ट्रांसफॉर्मेशंस हैं उनके कुछ मैट्रिसेस होते हैं, उनमें जो कॉमन ट्रांसफॉर्मेशंस है ना उनका आपको पता होना चाहिए. सो फॉर एग्जांपल लेट्स स्टार्ट विद रिफ्लेक्शन. पहले हम यहाँ पे लिखते हैं रिफ्लेक्शन. Okay, reflection, there are four common types of reflection that you have to be aware of. So we have reflection in x-axis. We've got reflection in y-axis. We've got reflection in the line y equals x. And we've got reflection in the line y equals minus x. These are four common transformations when it comes to reflection. ठीक है, लाइंस ऑफ रिफ्लेक्शन जब ये चार होंगी, इनमें आपको मैट्रिसेस का पता होना चाहिए. वी विल डिस्कस दिस कि अच्छे मैट्रिसेस को यूज कैसे करना है. उसके बाद how can we use matrices to transform figures, we will talk about that as well. But these are the four common transformations with respect to reflection that you need to be aware of. Then you have rotation. After that you've got rotation. अच्छा, रोटेशन के अंदर भी आपके पास तीन मेजर ट्रांसफॉर्मेशंस जिनका आपको पता होना चाहिए. वन इज 90 डिग्रीज एंटी क्लॉकवाइज. अच्छा, ये हमेशा क्या होगी, रोटेशन अबाउट ओरिजिन. हमेशा क्या होगी, रोटेशन अबाउट ओरिजिन. अबाउट ओरिजिन का क्या मतलब है, ओरिजिन इज द सेंटर ऑफ रोटेशन. ओरिजिन इज द सेंटर ऑफ योर रोटेशन. ओके, ये अब मैट्रिसेस में होगी आपके पास यही होंगी सिर्फ जब आपका जो है वो सेंटर रोटेशन ओरिजिन है. अच्छा, उसमें एंगल्स क्या क्या हो सकते हैं, यू कैन हैव 90 डिग्रीज क्लॉकवाइज, दैट्स वन पॉसिबिलिटी. यू कैन हैव 90 डिग्रीज एंटी क्लॉकवाइज, दैट्स अनदर पॉसिबिलिटी. एंड देन यू हैव 180 डिग्रीज. फिर आपके पास होता है 180 डिग्रीज की रोटेशन. ठीक है. अच्छा, 180 डिग्रीज में इट डजंट मैटर वेदर इट्स एंटी क्लॉकवाइज और क्लॉकवाइज, आप किसी भी साइड से करो यू गेट द सेम रिजल्ट. ठीक है, उसमें इट डजंट मैटर. अच्छा, सो देन यू हैव रोटेशन. रोटेशन की इन तीनों के मैट्रिसेस पता होने चाहिए आपको. एंड देन फाइनली यू गॉट एनलार्जमेंट. एनलार्जमेंट में तो आपके पास एक ही टाइप ऑफ मैट्रिक्स होता है, हम कहते हैं एनलार्जमेंट विद सेंटर ओरिजिन. सेंटर आपका यहाँ पे भी ओरिजिन होएगा, इसको हम कहेंगे सेंटर ऑफ एनलार्जमेंट, दैट इज 0 and 0. एंड यहाँ पे जो हम स्केल फैक्टर है, हम कहते हैं कि स्केल फैक्टर हमारे पास इस तरह का कुछ हो, स्केल फैक्टर लेट्स से ये. ओके, इन सब के आपको मैट्रिसेस पता होने चाहिए. अच्छा, नाउ हाउ डू यू फिगर आउट दीज मैट्रिसेस, लेट्स डिस्कस दैट नाउ. Walaikum assalam, Adam, Umayma, welcome to the class. So we are doing matrix transformations today. Okay, just drawing two things here. let's separate these out. So you've got rotate reflection at the top, then you've got rotation, then you have enlargement. अच्छा, अब ये matrices आपने figure out कैसे करने हैं. इसके लिए ना there are 2 points that are very important. ठीक है, जो आप use कर सकते हो to figure out these matrices. ठीक है, इसको याद करना बहुत मुश्किल हो जाएगा. There are 8 different matrices, तो उसमें numbers involved हैं सारे ones, zeros, ये सारे numbers हैं, तो it does become difficult to memorize all of them, right? अगर आप रट्टा लगाने की कोशिश करेंगे उसको, maybe some of you might be able to do that, but it's not easy, and I don't generally recommend कि आप चीजें memorize करें anyway, because there's every chance that you will forget them, and you have to think about things logically as well. इसका ज़्यादा फायदा होता है in the long term. अच्छा, अब ये किस तरह से matrices figure out करेंगे? अब इसमें 2 points आपके पास बहुत important होंगे. आपने हमेशा क्या करना है? You will make a grid like this. You make a grid like this, and you're going to mark 2 points on this grid. You're going to mark 2 points on this grid. One is this point here, that is 1, 0. So you've got 1 point here, that is 1, 0. And you've got another point here, that is 0, 1. ठीक है, ये 2 points आपके पास that are important. अब इनको मैं यहाँ पे लिख लेता हूँ. I've got 1.10 and I've got another point that is 0, 1. ठीक है, ये points मैंने कैसे लिखे हैं? ये points मैंने vertically लिखे हैं. Point हमेशा यहाँ पे vertically लिखते हैं. So the points are basically written like this, vertically. This is 1 point. हमेशा आपने 1, 0 पहले लिखना है. Horizontal वाला point, x-axis वाला point पहले लिखेंगे. That's your first point, 1, 0, and this is 0, 1. This is your original matrix that you're always going to use to figure out all those matrices. 1, 0, 0, 1. ठीक है? It's also called an identity matrix, and that is actually the reason it's used here, because identity matrix से आप इसको multiply करते हो ना, तो आपका matrix same रहता है. So that's basically the reason we use this. But we will not go into those details. But let's just understand it this way. अब आपने देखें, आपने कोई चीज reflect करनी है. You want to reflect something. Reflection in the line in x-axis, let's say. Reflection in x-axis. आपने x-axis के अंदर कोई चीज reflect करनी है. आप क्या करोगे? You will use these 2 points, 1, 0 and 0, 1. 1, 0 x-axis में reflect होने के बाद कहाँ चला जाएगा? देखिए, x-axis is your invariant line, right? X-axis is the line of reflection. 1, 0 का आप reflect करोगे, वो तो कहीं भी नहीं जाएगा. It will stay there. Right? 1, 0 will stay in its place. तो reflection करने के बाद ये जो 1, 0 point है, what happens to that? This basically stays there. It remains 1, 0. What happens to this point 0, 1? ये दूसरा point है 0, 1. ये कहाँ चला जाएगा? It will move down there, and that will be 0, minus 1. Exactly, 0, minus 1. So the second point will be 0, minus 1. That is the matrix that you have for a reflection in x-axis. ठीक है, हम वापस जाते हैं वहां पे इस फिगर के ऊपर पीछे, and we say this matrix here is basically 1, 0, 0, minus 1. This is the matrix that represents reflection in the x-axis. ठीक है, तो आपको कोई भी matrix figure out करना है, आपने quickly क्या करना है? You will make this grid here, 1, 0, 0, 1, and you'll figure out कि अच्छा ये points reflect होके कहाँ जाएंगे, या फिर जो भी ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन है वो होके कहाँ जाएंगे, and you write that matrix there. So let's do this very quickly for the rest of the matrices there. So reflection in x-axis किया हमने. What about reflection in y-axis? Let's do that quickly. इसको मैं y-axis में replace कर देता हूँ. What if we have y-axis here? So what happens to your matrix now? 1, 0 point. Y-axis में reflect होके कहाँ चला जाएगा? It will go on the other side. It becomes minus 1, 0, right? So that's the first thing that you get here. Minus 1, 0. What happens? Very good. So what happens to this other point? 0, 1. 0, 1 to y-axis के ऊपर आ रहा है. It stays the same. So that's 0, 1. And that is the matrix that you have for reflection in y-axis. So you're right there. This is the matrix that you have for reflection in y-axis. It's minus 1, 0 and 0, 1. That's the matrix that represents reflection in y-axis. Okay. So that's minus 1, 0 and 0, 1. Okay. Let's move on. What happens when you reflect something in the line y equals x? Okay, let's do that. Reflection in y equals x. Y equals x कैसी line होती है? This line is basically this diagonal line that passes through the origin. It's a gradient one होता है. Okay. Now let's reflect in this line. इस line के अंदर reflect करेंगे तो आप देखें आपके points पे क्या होएगा? 1 0 point. Where does this point go? Remember, it's going to go on the other side of this line. 1 0 चला जाएगा reflect होके 0 1 के ऊपर. ठीक है? This figure was accurate enough. आपको नजर आ जाएगा perpendicular distance दोनों sides पे same है. It goes to 0 1. Points आपके switch हो जाएंगे. Yes. 0 1. जो 0 1 point था, where does that go? That reflects and comes here and becomes 1 0. Right? So that's your matrix for reflection in the line y equals x. So it's a very quick process. So rather than memorizing, you can just spend a few seconds in your exam to figure it out right away. ये आपका matrix आ गया. That's 0 1 and 1 0. Okay, so that's the reflection in the line y equals x. Okay. All right. Walaikum assalam, Shivam. Yes, Noor, it will be available right after the class ends. So all playbacks are available there. Okay, so that's the matrix for the reflection in y equals x. Okay, let's do the other way around. What happens when you reflect something in the line y equals minus x? Okay, y equals minus x. उसमें कैसे reflect करेंगे? So वो line क्या होगी? Yes, Rafi, if you can remember that way, that's fine. Or you can just draw this line here. That makes it easier for you to just do it right away rather than memorizing. So where does this 1 0 point go? 1 0 point यहाँ पे चला जाएगा. 0 minus 1 पे. Okay, 1 0 point goes to 0 minus 1. So that's your first point here. 0 minus 1. Where does this point go? 0 1. 0 1 reflects and goes here, and that's your minus 1 0. Very good. Okay, so you get minus 1 0 there. All right, so that is what we get. ये आपका matrix आ गया for reflection in y equals minus x. So you say this is going to be 0 minus 1 and minus 1 0. That's the matrix for y equals minus x. ठीक है, ये सारे हमने reflection वाले matrices लिख लिए यहाँ पे. Okay. Yes, we use the identity matrix. Yes, Shivam. So that's the identity matrix. That I've written about there. 1 0 0 1. And remember, we are writing points vertically like this. Vertically like this point. All right. Achha, let's move on to rotation now. Same points I mentioned. This point is minus 1 and 0, and this point is 0 minus 1. Okay, let's move to rotation now. Let's see what happens there. Achha, rotation mein, remember, center of rotation origin ही रहेगा when you're talking about matrices. Matrices में आपको सिर्फ उन rotations की matrices पता होनी चाहिए जहां पे center of rotation origin है. सिर्फ तभी apply होगा, ठीक है? So rotation 90 degrees clockwise. Let's do this. And remember, it is going to be about origin. हमेशा ये origin पे ही होगी when you're dealing with matrices. Let's do this. Okay. 1 0 point. What happens to 1 0? Origin से आप rotate कर रहे हो 1 0 को. 1 0 क्या होएगा? 90 degrees clockwise rotate होके. It goes there and it goes to 0 minus 1. Right? Right जो है वो down चला जाएगा. Very good. So this was right. It goes to down and it becomes 0 minus 1. So you've got 0 minus 1 there. So what happens to this point there? 0 1. It was up there. It goes to right. It becomes 1 0. That's your second point. You've got 1 0 there. Very good. So that's your rotation 90 degrees clockwise about the origin. Okay, so you write that matrix there, 0 minus 1 1 0. So this is 0 minus 1 and 1 and 0. That's your 90 degrees clockwise rotation. Okay. All right, let's do 90 degrees anti-clockwise. ठीक है, हम clockwise के बजाय क्या करते हैं, हम 90 degrees anti-clockwise rotate कर देते हैं. What happens in that case? Let's write that down here. Rotation 90 degrees anti-clockwise. Shivam, we just saw that when we do, okay, how do the coordinates change? Okay, so let me remind you about that as well. आपकी rotation में coordinates कैसे change होते हैं? So if you want to memorize it that way, rotation के अंदर you've got three things. You've got 90 degrees clockwise. Or let's actually do it this way. So rotation, there are three types of rotation. There is 90 degrees clockwise. There is 90 degrees anti-clockwise. And there is 180 degrees, right? So this is how the coordinates basically change. If you have AB here and AB here and AB here, for in rotation, when you do 90 degrees clockwise rotation, remember we're talking about rotation about origin here. Origin की बात हो रही है. Origin की बात हो रही है. ठीक है? Origin की बात हो रही है. 90 degrees clockwise rotation करते हैं, so AB जो है it becomes B minus A, right? So ये वाला y coordinate है, y x बन जाता है, x y बन जाता है, लेकिन इसका ये sign भी change हो जाता है, right? I personally find it really hard to remember. Rata is not really the way to go in maths. It won't take you anywhere. I don't recommend that you memorize these things. उसमें error के chances भी ज़्यादा होते हैं. You should be able to understand these things logically. Logically आपको पता होना चाहिए. This can help you, do things quickly sometimes, but it's also prone to mistakes because there's every likelihood that you will just forget it at that point. तो आपको logical reasoning ज़रूर पता होनी चाहिए, and it can complement that, right? It can complement that. It can be in addition to that, लेकिन logical reasoning ज़रूर पता होनी चाहिए. अच्छा, AB आपका original point है, ये कहाँ चला जाएगा? This actually becomes minus B and A. और ये जो 180 degrees rotation होती है, इसमें जो आपके sign change हो जाते हैं, it becomes minus A and minus B. So that's how the coordinates change basically in rotations. अच्छा, I'm just going to erase that from here. All right. So what happens here now? Rotation 90 degrees anti-clockwise about the origin. Origin से start किया, ठीक है? 90 degrees anti-clockwise. So 10 point rotate होके कहाँ चला जाएगा? 0 1 पे. We got 0 1 here. 0 1 कहाँ चला जाएगा rotate होके? It goes to minus 1 0, right? So that's minus 1 0 there. So that's your matrix 0 1 minus 1 0. 0 1 minus 1 and 0. That's for 90 degrees anti-clockwise. Okay. And then finally, we've got 180 degrees rotation. What happens there? We've got rotation 180 degrees about the origin. What happens in this case? 10 point rotate होके कहाँ चला जाएगा? बिल्कुल opposite side पे. It becomes minus 1 0. Right? What about 0 1? 0 1 rotate होके 180 degrees. बिल्कुल opposite side पे चला जाएगा origin के. That's 0 minus 1. Right? So that's your matrix for 180 degrees rotation. Okay? Yeah, very good. So minus 1 0 and 0 minus 1. So let's do that. Minus 1 0 and 0 minus 1. That's for 180 degrees rotation. All right. Now finally we've got enlargement with center origin and scale factor K. So let's think about this now. Enlargement कैसे करेंगे? We've discussed rotation, we've discussed reflection, and we've discussed rotation. Now let's see what happens in enlargement. Again, you will be taking those same points, 1 0 and 0 1, the identity matrix. That's what you're using here as well. But now Let's do a particular example here. So let's say हम कहते हैं enlargement about origin. Yeah, यहाँ पे भी center of rotation जो है that will just be the origin. Center of enlargement, sorry, that will be the origin. वो ही रहेगा. Scale factor जो है, let's assume the scale factor is 3 for now. ठीक है, let's say हम scale factor 3 लेते हैं. अच्छा, scale factor 3 होता है तो क्या होता है? If you have scale factor 3, what happens to these points here? 1 0 point कहाँ चला जाएगा? 1 0 point. अगर हम 0 आपका center है, 1 0 point कहाँ चला जाएगा? It will go 3 times this original point. So 1 0 जो है वो 2 0 3 0, ये चला जाएगा 3 0. Right? Very good. So the image की length जो है वो 3 times original है. तो ये पहले 1 length थी, बाद में 3 times हो जाएगी. So 1 0 goes to 3 0. Similarly 0 1, where does that go? That goes to 0 3. Right? That goes to 0 3. Okay. So you see what's happening? जो आपका matrix, जो आपका scale factor था, जहाँ पे 1 था उसकी जगह 3 आ गया, इधर भी जहाँ पे 1 था उसकी जगह 3 आ गया है. So whatever was your original matrix, आपने सिर्फ 1 को replace करके scale factor डाल दिया. 3 था तो 3 आ गया, 3 था तो 3 आ गया. Similarly, it works the same way for negative scale factors as well. We also have a negative scale factor, and that's perfectly okay. For example, if you had a scale factor of -2, what happens there? -2 scale factor. अगर आपका ये 1 0 है, 1 0 point कहाँ चला जाएगा? It will go on the other side. 1 0 जो है, it will go to the other side there. ठीक है? ये चला जाएगा -2 0 पे. Very good. So 2 units, origin से distance होएगा, लेकिन origin के दूसरी side के ऊपर. So that's -2 0. All right. What about 0 1? Where does that go? It goes on the other side there. Again, distance double हो गया, लेकिन on the other side of the center, that's 0 -2. You see a pattern there. You see a pattern there. 1 जहां पे भी था identity matrix के अंदर, वो replace हो गया आपके scale factor के साथ, right? Okay, so let me repeat that. If the scale factor is -2, the scale factor was -2. Let's look at each of these points one by one again. 1 0 point देखते हैं. 1 0 point. Where does that go? Remember, 2 का मतलब है आपकी length double हो जाएगी. 2 का मतलब है length double हो जाएगी. और माइनस का मतलब है कि सेंटर के दूसरी साइड पर होगा, सेंटर के ऑपोजिट साइड पे. Add 1 0 here, ये ऑपोजिट साइड पे चला जाएगा पॉइंट, 2 times the distance from the center, that goes to -2 0. So that's why we have a -2 0 here. What about this point 0 1? Again, इसका distance center से पहले 1 था, it has to become twice because of this 2. लेकिन the negative sign means it's going to be on the other side of the center. So 0 1 कहाँ चला जाएगा? It will go here on the other side of the center and twice the distance. That's 0 -2. Okay, so it works the same way for a negative scale factor as well. So now we can generalize this thing and we can say, if the scale factor was something, if the scale factor was k, let's say it was any constant, तो जो आपका आइडेंटिटी मैट्रिक्स था वो क्या बन जाएगा? इट विल बिकम k0 and 0k. Exactly. So scale factor की जो है आप k की जगह लिख दोगे and that will be your matrix. So that's what we have for enlargement here. We say this matrix is going to be k0 0 k. All right. So that is your matrix for enlargement. So this is how we can make all of these matrices. You don't have to memorize them. You can just use that small grid 1 0 0 1 use करके आप ये सारे matrices figure out कर सकते हो. Shivam, no, this is not the last class. We will have another class, at least one more class, maybe 2, for statistics and probability. So they're going to be on Thursday or Friday. ठीक है, Thursday or Friday को होंगी. So after the Eid day, after tomorrow. So either on Thursday or Friday. Okay, on statistics and probability. Okay, so yeah, so these are all the matrices. But now, why are these important? Why are these important? Because these help you do transformations you theoretically. You don't have to, look at them visually. So a lot of times, what happens is, अगर आप देखें ना, ये बहुत सारे programs जो हैं, computer programs, they're actually using things like these. उन्होंने कोई games आप develop कर रहे हो, let's say you do such transformations there, right? आप अपनी animations देखते हो, उसमें reflections हो रही होती हैं, कुछ rotations हो रही होती हैं. आपने सुपर मारियो खेला होगा कभी बचपन में, खैर वो तो हमारे जमाने में होता था, आपने कुछ और गेम्स खेली होंगी, वहां पे आपका जो है वो शेप बड़ी हो जाती है, एनलार्ज हो जाती है. हाउ डू दे डू ऑल ऑफ दिस स्टफ? एनलार्जमेंट्स वगैरह सब कंप्यूटराइज्ड किस तरह से करते हैं? They basically do all of these things theoretically. अब theoretically हमने तो visually देखा है, अच्छा graphically किस तरह से ये सब चीजें चलती हैं, लेकिन आप चीज theoretically बहुत सारी चीजें matrices को यूज करके calculate कर रहे होते हो. वो किस तरह से? Let's say you have a figure like this. So अगर आपके पास बहुत सारे points होते हैं, हम तो ज्यादा डील करते हैं बहुत ही limited number of points के साथ ना. So we have, let's say, if I were to draw that figure here, in fact, अगर मैं वो figure यहाँ पे import करूँ, that grid that we've been using earlier. Yeah, so we have this triangle here. So let's say we had to enlarge this figure. इसको हमने enlarge करना था. We wanted the length to be twice the original, twice that of the original. ठीक है? और इसमें center of enlargement हमने origin रखना होता. ठीक है? So we want to enlarge this figure. Enlarge with scale factor 2 and center 0, 0. Okay. Can everyone see the figure here, the graph here that I've just posted? Yes, Shivam, you might want to refresh, and that might help. एक दफा refresh कर ले, that might be helpful. In matrices, yes. Afnan, whenever we are dealing with matrices, the center has to be 0. Okay. Otherwise, हम matrix या तो उसने matrix आपको बताया होगा फिर खुद से, अगर कुछ और center है, फिर वो matrix आपसे नहीं पूछेगा, वो आपको बताएगा matrix. Okay. अगर आपसे वो matrix पूछता है कोई, then the center has to be 0. Okay. Because the others, you don't know how to figure them out. उनका भी तरीका होता है, but we do not do that in O levels. All right. Achha. So we want to enlarge this figure by scale factor 2 and center origin. We know the matrix for this, right? इसका matrix क्या होता है? It's 2 0 0 2. That's the matrix for this figure. Okay. हम क्या करते हैं? इस मैट्रिक्स को प्री मल्टीप्लाई करते हैं. प्री मल्टीप्लाई का मतलब है इस मैट्रिक्स को पहले लिखेंगे, बाद में पॉइंट्स लिखेंगे जिनको एनलार्ज करना है. So points कौन से? You will just write the coordinates there. So you've got one coordinate here, 1 and 1. You've got another here that is 2 1. You have another here that is 1 3. You write those coordinates vertically. Vertically लिखेंगे. इसको mark कर देते हैं. Let's say this is A, this point is B, this point is C. Okay, so we write them like this: A, B, C. A point kya hai? That's 1 and 1. What's B? That's 2 1. C is 1 3. So now you can see you can actually add as many points here as you want. So that's what a computer does. You can't do, a large number of points manually like this. लेकिन आप यहाँ पे hundreds, thousands of points भी enter कर सकते थे, and a computer would be able to do that easily, right? So that's how this works. लेकिन आपके पास क्या होंगे? 3 या 4 पॉइंट्स होंगे मैक्सिमम, तो आपको करने होंगे 5 भी हो सकते हैं कभी, rarely. But this is how you do it. You just multiply these matrices. इनको multiply कर देते हैं. 2 0 1 1. Let's do that. So remember, matrix multiplication में हमने क्या किया हुआ है? This has an order of 2 by 2. दूसरा जो matrix है उसका order क्या है? 2 rows and 3 columns. तो जो final matrix आएगा आपके पास, जो result आएगा, वो किस order का आएगा? That will be 2 by 3. 2 by 3. Right? First matrix का ये rows, second matrix के columns. Final result आएगा आपके पास, that will be a 2 by 3 matrix. Right? So you should know that. ताकि आप उस तरह का उसको उस तरह से सोचें. So 2 0 and 0 1. What do you get from that? 2 into 1 plus 0. So that's 2 plus 0. Remember, tails को tail से multiply करना है, head को head से. So 2 into 1 plus 0 into 1, that's 2 plus 0. Okay, next 2 0 and 2 1, so 2 into 2, that is 4, plus 0 into 1, that's 0. Okay, next 2 into this 1, which is 2, plus 0 into this 3, that's just 0. 2 plus 0. Let's come to the second row now. Second row में क्या है? We've got 0 2 and 1 1. So 0 into 1, that's just 0. 0 multiplied by anything is 0. Plus 2 into this 1, that is going to be 2. So उसके बाद next क्या होएगा? This 0 into 2, that's a 0 again. Plus 2 into this 1, which is 2. And then finally we've got 0 into 1, that's 0. Plus this 2 into this 3, that is 6. And that gives us the final result. That's going to look like this. 2, 2, 4, 2, 2, and 6. And that's your enlarged matrix. This is A dash, this is B dash, this is C dash. आप वो figure वहाँ पे जाके बना सकते हो. 2, 2, 4, 2. So this point is here. 2, 2, 4, 2, and then 2, 6. And your figure is going to look something like this. That's your enlarged figure. ठीक है, वो जो काम हम पहले graphically भी करते थे, वो हम यहाँ पे इस तरह से matrix को use करके भी कर सकते हैं. ठीक है? So कभी-कभी आपको वो खुद से matrix देगा और आपको उसको use करके क्या करना होगा? आपको किसी figure को transform करना होगा. उसमें आप यही तरीका apply करते हो, that you just multiply that matrix with the coordinates from your figure. तो भी आपके पास figure होती है, उसके coordinates हम multiply कर देते हैं, and you get the image from that. All right. अच्छा. Umayma, the technique will be the same there, but the matrix would be different. वो matrix आपको खुद से पता होना जरूरी नहीं है. फिर अगर आपका center origin नहीं है, you won't be able to find the matrix yourself. You don't know the process for that, right? तो matrix आपको नहीं पता होगा. अगर उसने खुद से आपको matrix बताया है, उसने कहा है कि ये transformation apply करनी है, then you apply exactly the same process. जो matrix दिया होगा, यहाँ पर आ जाएगा इस matrix की जगह पे. ठीक है? जो coordinates होंगे आपके figure के, इधर आ जाएंगे, उनको multiply करेंगे, you'll get this image. Okay? I hope that makes sense. Yes, Laiba, in transformations, you can use your calculator to do this multiplication for you. अगर matrix वाला question है, उसमें आप नहीं कर सकते. ठीक है? अगर आपको सिर्फ transformation find करनी थी, आपको figure draw करनी है सिर्फ, let's say. In that case, you can use your calculator to do it directly. अगर उसने कोई क्वेश्चन दिया है, उसमें वो खुद से मैट्रिक्स यूज कर रहा है और आपसे कोई चीज मल्टीप्लाई करने को कहता है, then you have to show the working. अगर आप वहां पे working show नहीं करोगे, you will lose marks there. अगर उसने सिर्फ enlargement का करने को कहा है and he doesn't care आप किस तरह से करते हो, then it's fine. You can just use your calculator. I hope that's clear. Okay. I'm just looking at the questions there. Okay. Yeah, so Shivam, I think I've answered your question as well. If it's just about drawing the figure, if that was all that was asked from you to enlarge this figure and draw that triangle on the diagram, then you don't have to show these steps because there are multiple ways of doing this. हम इसको graphically भी कर सकते हैं. An examiner knows that आप किसी भी method से कर सकते हो. It doesn't matter. There, you don't have to show this multiplication at all. But if it's a matrix question, क्वेश्चन में ही मैट्रिसेस इन्वॉल्वड हैं, उसने कहा होगा आपको कोई चीज मैट्रिक्स फाइंड करने का या कुछ मल्टीप्लिकेशन करने का, उसने कोई इक्वेशन दी हुई है, then you have to show that working. Then it's a different case. Okay? Yes, I would prefer, I would recommend that you do it by pencil. Cambridge does not really penalize for that, but it's for your own good कि आप पेंसिल से करें ताकि अगर आप कुछ गलती से ड्रॉ कर दें, you have the option of erasing that. But otherwise, you only have one grid. आप पेन से कर दोगे, कुछ गलत हो गया, गलत लाइन लगी, बहुत ज़्यादा क्लटर हो जाएगा, फिर एग्जामिनर को समझ नहीं आएगी आपने क्या किया होगा. Okay. All right. Yes, so you can do it. Yeah, you can do it this way, whether they ask for it or not. अगर आप matrices use करना चाहते हैं खुद से, that's perfectly okay. But remember, matrices आपको सिर्फ उन cases के पता हैं. ये reflection में सिर्फ y axis x axis y equals x और y equals minus x सिर्फ उनके matrices पता हैं. और rotation के लिए जब आपका center of rotation origin होता है, enlargement में जब center of enlargement 0 होता है, सिर्फ उन केसेस में अप्लाई कर सकते हैं. अगर सेंटर ओरिजिन के बजाय कहीं और चला जाए तो खुद से वो मैट्रिक्स से आप नहीं कर सकते. For diagrams you can use pencil. Yes, that's perfectly okay. You that's actually preferred that you use a pencil ताकि आप उसको correct कर सको if you have to. Okay, now let's do a few questions very quickly. अब इसमें ना एक चीज और आती है, that is combining transformations, combination of transformations. ठीक है, combination transformation जहाँ पे दो transformations इकट्ठी अप्लाई हो रही होती है. ठीक है, वो एक क्वेश्चन हम उसका भी देखेंगे. But let's, before we go to that, I just want to do a couple of questions, a couple of practice questions before we go there. ठीक है, so I'm just going to copy some questions here, one by one. We'll do them quickly. That should give you some review of what we've done. There's one thing still left, and that's combination of transformations. We will come to that in about 10 to 15 minutes. Because दो transformations इकट्ठी apply हो रही होती हैं, हम देखते हैं. Let's look at this question before we do that. Shamir, it's perfectly okay. So it varies for different people, right? So some people find this easier, some people find the graphical method easier. So there's no one thing that fits everyone. So it depends on the individual, right? So some people find that easy, some people find this easy. So you have to go with what you prefer, and that's perfectly okay. So the examiner is only interested in the correct method. जो भी आप method apply करो, it should be correct, right? मतलब आपकी working सही हो, अगर जहाँ पे required है, और आप अगर उसने सिर्फ triangle मांगी है आपसे, तो you just draw that triangle whatever way, it doesn't matter how you reach that. उसमें कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. Okay, let's have a look at this now. We have this figure here. We've got a number of different triangles here, A, B, C, and D. We have to describe fully the single transformation that maps A onto B. Okay, that maps A onto B. A से आप जा रहे हो B के ऊपर. So remember our rule. Is the size changing? Well, the size is not changing. It's not enlargement. Is the orientation changing? It's not changing. इसका मतलब ये translation है. The translation है. The translation में आप क्या लिखोगे? You will write it's a translation. That's the first thing you say. That earns the 1 mark. Translation. फिर आप लिखोगे वेक्टर क्या है, that will earn you the second mark. वेक्टर किस तरह figure out करते हैं? Take any point, any corresponding set of points. So let's say this point here 90 degrees वाला, and this point here 90 degrees वाला. Let's see क्या आप A से B पे कैसे जा सकते हो. 1 2 3 4 5 6. We have to go 6 units left, so that's minus 6, and then we have to go 1 2 3 units up, that is plus 3, and that completes your description of this transformation, right? So that's translation minus 6 and 3. Okay. All right, let's look at the second one. I just need 1 minute. Think about the second and third one. You can post in the chat box. I'll be back in 1 minute. So let me know what the second and third transformations here should be. Okay, let's think about this then. So the second part says, describe fully the single transformation that maps B onto C. B onto C. अच्छा, B से C पे जा रहे हैं. All right. B से C पे. Now, the first step, is the size changing? Well, yes, there is. The size is changing. It has to be an enlargement. It has to be an enlargement because size change हो रहा है. Remember, उसने आपसे single transformation पूछी है. Some of you are saying rotation भी लग रही है. Well, you can actually achieve some things using multiple transformations. अब उससे इसमें एक transformation करते हैं enlargement, फिर आप उसको rotate करते. You could have got this figure that way as well. Because उसने कहा single transformation. एक single transformation होनी चाहिए. ठीक है? When we talk about single transformation, it's only enlargement. ठीक है? अच्छा. अब 1 mark you'll get by writing enlargement. Normally इसके 3 marks होते हैं वैसे. Total इस तरह के questions के यहाँ पे इसने फिर 2 दिए हैं, so that's okay. Enlargement, ये तो आपको पता चल गया, because the size is changing. Remember, we're going from B to C. B से C पे जा रहे हैं, the figure is becoming smaller. The figure is becoming smaller. Okay? छोटी हो रही है figure. आपका जो scale factor होगा, वो -1 और 1 के दरम्यान में होएगा. यानी उसका magnitude 1 से छोटा होएगा. That's what you should understand. 1 से छोटा magnitude होएगा उसका. अच्छा. Now, the figure is also inverting. Invert भी हो रही है figure, right? Same direction में नहीं है, same orientation नहीं है, direction invert हो रही है. So negative scale factor होएगा, ठीक है? So you can write the scale factor directly if you want. आपको नजर आ रहा है, corresponding length देख लें. This length here, for instance, is 4. This length, corresponding length on the other side is 2. Half हो रही है, तो scale factor क्या होना चाहिए? Scale factor should be 1/2. लेकिन क्योंकि आपकी figure invert हो रही है, opposite direction में उल्टी हो रही है, we have a -1/2 there. ठीक है? Or you can also, do it using the scale, the finding the center of enlargement first. Center of enlargement figure out कर ले, और उसके बाद फिर आप देख लेंगे center के opposite sides पर है, तो वो negative scale factor होगा. Center की एक ही side पर है तो positive scale factor होगा. यहाँ पे देखते हैं. Let's do that. So let me write that here again. So center of enlargement कैसे figure out करते हैं? Basically join corresponding points. ठीक है? Corresponding points यहाँ पे लिख लेंगे तो it will be easier for you. 90 degrees वाले को A कह लेते हैं. Let's call this A dash. So that's A here. Okay. उसके बाद जो longer side है उसको हम B कह लेते हैं. Longer side वाला point. So that's B dash here. The other point is C, and that's C dash here. Let's join corresponding points. तो एक तो हमारे पास A बन रहा होगा इधर. A dash को join करेंगे, B dash को करेंगे, दोनों से same ही line आएगी आपके पास. But then we join C and C dash. Let's see what we get from that. We get -2 and 1. So that's your center of enlargement. -2 and 1. Okay. This is the center of enlargement. So the center of enlargement is -2 and 1. So what is the scale factor then? What is the scale factor then? The scale factor is going to be, since this was 4, this was 2, half हो रही है, क्योंकि opposite side पे center of enlargement के, this is -1/2, -0.5. That's the scale factor. That describes this transformation. Okay, center of enlargement of none, we just join corresponding points. जो उनका point of intersection होता है, that is the center. Corresponding point कैसे figure out करने हैं? आपने angles देख लेने हैं कोई. So 90 degrees वाला is a common angle, right? So this is 90 degrees here, so that's A. तो वही 90 degrees वहाँ पे A dash होएगा दूसरी figure में. उसके बाद जो longer side है, उसको मैं उस side वाला point को मैं B कह रहा हूँ. Longer side वाला point को मैं यहाँ पे B कह रहा हूँ. So the other point is C, and that's C dash. Now you join these corresponding points, wherever they intersect, that is the center of enlargement. Okay? And then we find the scale factor like that as well. All right. Describe fully the single transformation that maps C onto D. Okay, C onto D. So I'm going to erase that stuff from here ताकि clutter कुछ कम हो जाए हमारे पास. अब यहाँ पे भी देखें, अब जब पेंसिल से कर रहे होगे फिर आप पिछली वाली वर्किंग अपनी रिमूव कर सकते हो ताकि आप clutter थोड़ा कम हो जाए. It helps you understand better as well. Okay, I've erased the second part from there. Now let's look at the third part. C onto D. Achha, again, is the size changing? It's not changing. Is the orientation changing? It is changing. So your center of enlargement nahi hai. Sorry, enlargement nahi hai, translation nahi hai. It's one of rotation or reflection. Reflection and rotation में से कुछ है. Reflection and rotation में से कुछ है. No, Rafe, that's not necessary. That's not necessary. That's not necessary. You ये description के marks हैं, ठीक है? Because a lot of people can do it mentally as well. Examiner does not expect everyone to use the same method. A lot of things can be done mentally, and some people do it that way. So usme they're not penalized for that. Right? You can just write that directly. That's fine. Okay, now the third one is a rotation. It's a rotation. How do we know that? Corresponding points dekh le. C se D pe ja rahe hain. So this is A, let's say. So this is A dash. This is B, and this is B dash. This is C, and this is C dash. Okay, अच्छा यहाँ पे ABC already use हुआ है, मैं तो आप XYZ use कर सकते थे, that would have been better, but fair, that's what we have. अब आप देख लें corresponding points को अगर आप join करें, parallel lines नहीं बनती हैं, so it's not reflection, it's a rotation. अब rotation में क्या क्या चाहिए होता है आपको? Rotation में you need two things. So सबसे पहले आप यहाँ पे लिख सकते हो, it's a rotation, right? It's a rotation. Angle भी आप देख सकते हो if you want. You देखें AB ये है, so AB look like this. This is AB originally. बाद में क्या हो रहा है? It looks like this. आपको एंगल नजर आ रहा है क्या बन रहा है? It's going like this. ये ओरिजिनल था. A को आप वहीं पे हिंज बना दो. B यहाँ पे नीचे आ रहा है. Is that clockwise or anti-clockwise? That's 90 degrees, yes. But is that clockwise or anti-clockwise? That's anti-clockwise, right? So it's anti-clockwise rotation. So that earns you 1 mark at least at this point. तो अब ये चीज बहुत जल्दी फिगर आउट कर सकते हो. एंगल अगर वो कॉमन एंगल है 90 या 180, आप डायरेक्टली फिगर आउट कर सकते हो. ओरिजिनली आप कोई भी लेंथ देखो और उसको देख लो, अच्छा यहाँ पे किस तरह बन रही है. So it's 90 degrees anti-clockwise rotation. That much you understand. You can write it here. It's a rotation 90 degrees anti-clockwise. And the only thing that's left is you have to write down the center of rotation. Center of rotation आपको figure out करना पड़ेगा. अब इसका भी एक तरीका होता है mentally करने का. Let me just tell that to you as well. So आप इसको mentally भी figure out कर सकते हो, पता है? So let's do it that way first. Center of rotation जो होता है ना, इसका distance सारे points से corresponding point से equal होता है. Corresponding point से distance equal होता है. यानी कि A और A डैश से भी इक्वल डिस्टेंस होना चाहिए, B और B डैश से भी इक्वल डिस्टेंस होना चाहिए, C और C डैश से भी इक्वल डिस्टेंस होना चाहिए. ठीक है? इस तरह के क्वेश्चन में ना आप क्या कर सकते हो? You can actually do hit and trial as well, and you can use some logic there. So for instance, if I were to use one point here randomly, so let's choose some points here, because remember, most of the times it's going to be integer coordinates. It's going to be integer coordinates most of the times, right? Let me choose a point here that I think might work. Let's say I start with this point. Let's assume I start with this point. अब इसको देखिए, B से distance कितना है? B से equal distance है? Yes. A से distance equal है क्या? Well, no, it's not equal. So this does not work. Okay. यानी कि मुझे A के करीब जाना है अब. A के करीब जाते हैं अगर मैं यहाँ पे आऊँगा, well वो A के तो equal हो जाएगा, लेकिन B equal नहीं रहेगा. Okay, so I can't choose that as well. Let's come down here. Now, this is equal distance from B dash and B. It's equal distance there. ठीक है? अच्छा, A से देखते हैं. A से equal नहीं आ रहा. Okay, let's take another point. -10 try कर लेते हैं. नीचे आते हैं उससे और B से distance देखें. B से distance कैसा है? Well, it's equal. What about A? A से भी equal distance है. Okay, C से भी equal distance है. And you can just do it like this. You just do it like this. You can do it using hit and trial like this. आप आस-पास कुछ points check कर ले. Coordinates के ऊपर जिस point के equal distances आ रहे हैं, you can, just write it like this directly. So a lot of people do this mentally like this, and that saves time. So you can write it like this. This is 1, -1, and 0. Now, if that does not work for you, if that's not the way you think, then that's perfectly okay. And you use the standard method there, and that is by drawing perpendicular bisectors. Okay, so you can do that. So perpendicular bisectors draw kar le corresponding points के b dash का आसान है because that's horizontal. इसका vertical, इसका perpendicular bisector vertical बनेगा. Let's draw that perpendicular bisector. It's going to look like this. We've got one perpendicular bisector here for b and b dash. a और a dash का बना लेंगे आप, ठीक है? वो आप देख लें आपके पास क्या बनेगा. So what is that going to look like? That will be so this is my point. That's here. Yeah. So b or b dash ka, a or a dash ka perpendicular bisector is going to look like this. Okay. So this is a dash ka perpendicular bisector, and this one was b dash ka perpendicular bisector. Okay. So wherever they intersect, that's your center of rotation. That's this point here, -1, 0. Right. So a perpendicular bisectors में of course आपको थोड़ा सा time लगेगा. So if you can do it mentally like this, that's perfect. But of course, it's all right. If you just want to draw a perpendicular bisector, that's also fine. यहाँ पे आप CC dash का भी draw कर लें. So that will just confirm that your working is correct. CC dash का perpendicular bisector will look something like this. Yeah. So CC dash का will look like this. वो confirm कर देगा कि अच्छा वही point है जहां पे सारे intersect कर रहे हैं, and that's this point here. Okay, so that's your rotation. Okay, let's do the last one now. So let me erase all of that stuff. Part 4 here. So now we've got a matrix there, and let's think about that. इसमें ना कोई मसला है, पिछले वाले erase नहीं करता for some reason. So I'm just do that again. Clutter रह जाता है कुछ. Okay, try again. Okay, now it's fine. Okay, now write down the matrix that represents the transformation that maps C onto A. Okay, C onto A. C से A पे जाना है. Now remember, अच्छा सबसे पहला काम, you think of what kind of transformation this is. C से A पे जा रहे हो, it's an enlargement. It's an enlargement. Okay. अच्छा, अब जब भी आपसे matrix पूछेगा, remember the center is going to be origin. Center is going to be origin. Center आपका origin ही होएगा. ठीक है, आप verify भी कर सकते हो यहाँ पे. The center is origin. ठीक है. Okay. Center is origin. अब आपने देखना है कि scale factor क्या है. Scale factor के लिए एक तो आपको पता है it's negative because the figures are on the opposite sides. तो scale factor एक तो आपको पता है negative होएगा, minus. And then what about the number there? आप corresponding sides check कर लें. C से A पे जा रहे हैं. This side is 2. This side is 4. Double हो रहा है. Right? Similarly, this side was 1. This was 2. So double हो रही है. So that's -2. Scale factor is -2. So what is the matrix for that? Remember, enlargement का तो खैर याद रखना आसान है. That's just K0, 0K. So the scale factor, the matrix therefore is going to be -2, 0, 0, -2. That's your matrix for that one. Okay, is this clear to everyone? Any issues with this? All right, now I'm going to do one last question that will clear some more concepts for us, and that's a slightly tricky one, but that does that combination of transformation thing as well. A combination of transformation thing as well, so that helps you there. Let's do it. Okay. So now it's a bit challenging, and it also helps us clear some concepts. might have seen this in some past paper as well. I'm just copying here. Okay, so let's do this last question before we end today. Okay, I have part here. C part okay. Copy this. And grid. Yeah, it does look slightly scary, but it'll help us clear some concepts. Okay. I have this grid here. Need to see. All right. So this is what we have then. So let's start with this. So we have some transformations here that are given. अब देखिए उसने ना कुछ letter से represent कर दिया है कुछ transformations को. Okay, mx, my, m represents reflection. m को उसने reflection से m से उसने reflection represent किया है और r से rotation represent किया है और उसने describe किया उन सारी transformations. Now we can use this grid here on the right to help answer these questions. So there's a point A that has coordinates 2 and 3. Okay. Now my of A. My का क्या मतलब है? It's reflection in the y-axis. Reflection in the y-axis. Y-axis में reflection करनी है आपने A की. So if you remember that rule, you can use that. Y-axis में reflect करते हो तो क्या होता है? आपकी जो point है उसके x coordinate जो है वो negative हो जाता है, y वही रहता है. So we have -2 and 3 there. Yes. So we can also draw a grid here, and, just once, and that will help us do some thinking there. So let me just draw this grid. So part this y-axis and part this x-axis. So this is x, and let's say this is 1, 2, 3, 4, -1, -2, 1, 2, -2. Okay, so -2 3 point का 2 3 point किधर आ रहा था? 2 3 point was somewhere here. So that's your point A. ठीक है, ये reflect होके कहाँ चला जाएगा? Left side पे चला जाएगा. It goes to -2 3. This is what happens when it's reflected. Okay, now the next thing is important. Find the coordinates of MD, MY of A. Now, let's think about this now. Now remember, it's a combination of transformations. We've got two transformations that are being applied here together. Okay, two transformations that are being applied together. अब जो आपकी A के साथ लग रही है, that's MY. That is being applied first. So यहाँ पे जब इस तरह से लिखा हुआ है, अगर आपके पास कुछ लिखा हो ना, x, y of something, y पहले अप्लाई होएगा A के ऊपर जो उसके करीब है, and then x जो है, that will be applied second. So it's y transformation followed by transformation x. Okay. Similarly here, it's my first, and then second you have md. पहले my करेंगे, उसके बाद md करेंगे. ठीक है. अब देखिए my of a तो हमने ऑलरेडी निकाल लिया पिछले पॉइंट में. उसको रिफ्लेक्ट करके तो हमारे पास ये आ गया था, उसको रिफ्लेक्ट करके हमारे पास ये पॉइंट आ गया था, उसको हमने ए डैश कहा था, ठीक है। उसके बाद क्या करना है, इसको आपने रिफ्लेक्ट करना है एमडी। एमडी क्या है, रिफ्लेक्शन इन लाइन y इक्वल्स माइनस एक्स, y इक्वल्स माइनस एक्स में रिफ्लेक्ट करना है, ओके। लेट्स ड्रॉ दैट लाइन हियर, y इक्वल्स माइनस एक्स। y इक्वल्स माइनस एक्स लाइन कैसी होती है, इट लुक्स लाइक दिस, दिस इज अ लाइन y इक्वल्स माइनस एक्स, ठीक है। आपको अगर वो उस तरह से याद रखना है तो दैट्स आल्सो फाइन। दिस इज व्हाट वी गेट, दिस इज द लाइन y इक्वल्स माइनस एक्स। तो आप देखें क्या होएगा, ये जो a डैश पॉइंट था ऊपर जिसके कोऑर्डिनेट्स वर -2 and 3, ये यहां से ऑपोजिट साइड पे इधर आ जाएगा, एंड दिस पॉइंट हियर is going to be -3 and 2. So this is -3 and 2. Okay, -3 and 2. Shamir, it's -3 and 2 the other way around. The other way around. No. Shivam, you will get it wrong. That's not how it works. You have to respect the order. So you do my first, and then after that you do md. जो साथ लगा होएगा उस पॉइंट के वो पहले होएगा, उसके साथ सिर्फ आप देखेंगे फंक्शंस में भी ऐसे होएगा। अगर आपने कॉम्पोजिट फंक्शंस किए हैं ओ लेवल्स में, यस कॉम्पोजिट फंक्शंस में भी ऐसे होता है ना, चलो नहीं किया हुआ, याद नहीं आ रहा, ओ लेवल्स में आप लोगों ने शायद किए होंगे। सो आप एक जो साथ होता है फंक्शन, जो साथ लगा होता है वो पहले अप्लाई होता है, उसके बाद फिर बाहर वाला अप्लाई होता है, ओके ऑलराइट। तो दिस इज व्हाट वी हैव। अच्छा, उसके बाद वो कहते हैं the inverse of R90. Now that's interesting language as well. Inverse of R90. अच्छा, R90 का represent कर रहा था। R90 was a rotation of 90 degrees anti-clockwise about the origin. इसका inverse, इसका opposite, देखिए किस चीज का 90 degrees anti-clockwise rotate कर रहे हैं, उसका opposite क्या होगा, उसका inverse क्या होगा, 90 degrees clockwise, right? इसको वापस अपनी पोजीशन पे लेके आने के लिए क्या करना होगा, it means 90 degrees clockwise. That's what this inverse of R90 means. Achha. Now this maps B onto A. Okay. B को आप rotate करते हो 90 degrees, तो आपको A मिलता है। अगर आप origin से 90 degrees कितना rotate करते हो, clockwise. So let me draw that here. This is the origin. This is the origin, and what we're doing is B से A पे जाने के लिए आपको क्या करना पड़ता है, 90 degrees clockwise rotate करना पड़ता है about origin. आपको फाइंड क्या करना है, आपको B फाइंड करना है। B तो है नहीं, B तो है ही नहीं हमारे पास। How do you find B now? B फाइंड करने के लिए what you do is, आपके पास A है ना, आपके पास A है, आपके पास B नहीं है, तो A से B पे कैसे जाएंगे फिर? अगर B से A पे जाने के लिए 90 डिग्री क्लॉकवाइज रोटेशन करनी है, तो B से A पे कैसे जाएंगे, A से B पे कैसे जाएंगे? It will be 90 degrees anti-clockwise rotation. 90 degrees anti-clockwise rotation about origin. ठीक है, B से A पे कैसे जाएंगे 90 degrees clockwise, तो उल्टा जाना है आपने A से B पे, that will be 90 degrees anti-clockwise. Shivam, yes, you could say it's 270 degrees clockwise. Yes, that's equivalent to this. So you could also do that, yes. All right, Acha. So let's do that. So you have this origin here. आपने इससे rotate करना है इसको. So let's do it how we used to do it. So we say we're going 2 units right here. Origin से 2 right है. A क्या है? It's 2 right. And then 3 up. Okay, so it's 2 right and 3 up. Anti-clockwise rotate करना है. Right कहाँ चला जाएगा? Right will go up. Remember, right will go up. So that's 2 here. So it becomes 2 up. Up goes left, so that's 3 left. So 2 up and then 3 left. And you get this point here. Again, that's -3 and 2. वही point पिछले part में मिला था. You get the same thing here, and that is -3 and 2. That's your result here. Does this make sense? Does this make sense to everyone? Okay, good. Let's move on. Let's look at the next part. Let's look at the next part. Okay, so then we have part 2 here. इसमें मैं grid भी copy कर लेता हूँ. Okay, sorry, I just had something important to deal with. So I just need to finish this early. So we'll be quick about it. Okay. All right. So this is the next part now. Just sorry, Rafi, I think I've missed your question somewhere. Rafi. Achha, sorry. Let me go back there. Okay, so let me repeat that. So I said, so it's the question says inverse of R90 maps that only the MD. So you don't get MD this part, Rafi. You don't get this part here. Okay. So there are two transformations that are being applied here. You've got MD and you've got MY. They're both being applied on A. But then the order matters. A के ऊपर सबसे पहले ये MY apply होएगा. MY क्या है? That's reflection in the y-axis. Okay. So this point was A here. Reflect that in the y-axis, you get to this point A dash. That's -2, 3. Okay. अच्छा. जब ये जो 7 लगा हुआ है वो पहले apply होगी transformation. Then the result there that was -2, 3. उसके ऊपर आप ये transformation apply करोगे. That's MD. Okay. And that is reflection in the line y equals -x. इस point को आप reflect करोगे, तो A dash point का, reflect that in the line y equals -x. So when you reflect that, you draw that line here. जितना perpendicular distance ऊपर था, उतना ही नीचे. So you get -3,2 point here. That's this point -3,2. Or if you remember that those coordinates किस तरह change होते हैं? Y equals -x वाली transformation के अंदर AB goes to -B and -A. You could also do that if that's what you are more used to. So that's your choice graphically, but it's fairly straightforward. ये वो जो ऊपर वाला point था वो नीचे आ जाएगा यहाँ. Okay, all right, good. Let's move on. Let's look at the next part. So write down the matrix which represents MX. MX. What was MX? MX was reflection in x-axis. So it was reflection in the x-axis. Okay. So reflection in x-axis क्या होती है? Let's draw that grid very quickly. We've got 1, 0 and 0, 1. X-axis में reflect करते हैं 1, 0 कहाँ जाता है? It stays at 1, 0. 0, 1 कहाँ जाता है? It comes to 0, -1. That's your matrix, right? 1, 0 वहीं पे रहता है, 0, 1 नीचे आ जाता है, 0, -1 के ऊपर. So that's your matrix. Is this okay? All right. Acha. Now let's look at the last part. Which single transformation given in the table is equivalent to R180 and MX? Okay. Now this is a bit tricky. देखिए R180 MX. अब इसका आसान तरीका पता क्या है? So there are two ways of thinking about this. Actually, you can do it using matrices, or you can use it graphically. So let's do it graphically quickly first. So आप क्या करें? कोई यहाँ पे point choose कर लें. So let me draw that grid here again. I've got this grid. Or let me choose a central value here. I'm not sure. Let's do it. Let's check if that's correct or not. So let's take a point. that is कोई point ले लेते हैं यहाँ पे a point क्या था, it was 2 3 I guess, so let's take that, let's say this is 2 and 3. okay 2 3 point ऊपर वहां पे नजर आ रहे हैं, this is 2 this is 3. अच्छा mx, remember order again, जो बाद में होगा वो पहले अप्लाई होगा. mx is applied first, so r180 mx, इसको हम किसी पॉइंट के ऊपर अप्लाई करके देख लेते हैं. लेट्स अप्लाई दिस ऑन a. mx पहले अप्लाई होगा, x एक्सिस में रिफ्लेक्शन. ओके 2 3 रिफ्लेक्ट हुआ x एक्सिस के अंदर, इट कम्स हियर डाउन, दैट्स -2 सॉरी दैट्स 2 and -3. ठीक है, नीचे आ गया इधर -3 के ऊपर. उसके बाद क्या होएगा, रोटेशन 180 डिग्रीज. 180 डिग्री रोटेशन करते हैं ओरिजिन के अबाउट. क्या होएगा, जितना डिस्टेंस नीचे था इस तरह अब लाइन बनाएंगे स्ट्रेट, जितनी नीचे जा रही थी लाइन उतनी ऊपर ले जाएं. So that's going to be right there. ऊपर जाके this point here is your a double dash. That's your final point. So you can see what's happening. It looks like a reflection in the y-axis. It's a reflection in the y-axis. So it's basically a reflection in y-axis ry. So which transformation is it equivalent to? It's basically ry. That's what you write that. Okay. So let's repeat. What are you doing here? I'm just choosing one point. Just choosing a point, and it's important to choose this point such that कि यहाँ पे ना x और y coordinates वहाँ पे different हो. देखिए वो कौन सी ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन है जो वो कह रहा है आपसे, R180 mx. What transformation is that? यहाँ पे आप mx कर रहे हो. So if I were to write this in words, reflect in x-axis, you do that, and then the second thing you do is rotate 180 degrees. That's what this thing means here. It's asking you, what is this equivalent to? Which transformation is this equivalent to? That's already given in the table there that we have. जो ऊपर table दिया हुआ था कहीं पे. Yeah. इस table के अंदर कोई single transformation ऐसी है that achieves the same thing as this thing here. Okay. अब ये दो चीजें हमारे पास क्या हो रही हैं? Let's think about this. X axis में हमने क्या किया, हमने graphically इसको करने के लिए ये किया, we chose a point ourselves और उसके ऊपर हमने अप्लाई करके देख लिया इसको कि इन दोनों का इफेक्ट क्या होता है. ठीक है, so we basically are investigating कि अच्छा इससे क्या होता है. ये जो दोनों ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन है इनसे होता क्या है. अगर हम ये पॉइंट लेते हैं, A को यूज कर लेते हैं, 2 3 पॉइंट का, पहले हम इसको रिफ्लेक्ट करते हैं X एक्सिस के अंदर, get this point here, नीचे आ रहा है A dash, that's 2 and -3. Then we rotate 180 degrees. इसको ओरिजिन से रोटेट कर दें, ओरिजिन के अबाउट रोटेट करें 180 डिग्रीज, ये ऊपर आ जाएगा A double dash. So how can you go from A to A double dash directly? How can you go from A to A double dash directly? So this point is yes, -2 and 3. How can you go from A to A double dash directly? It's like a y-axis reflection. So you say it's the same thing as saying ry. Okay, it's the same thing as saying ry. So ry represents, अच्छा ry हमारे पास नहीं है, my, sorry, so that's my, not ry, that is my. So this is my. Okay, अच्छा let's do it using matrices. R180 का matrix क्या होता है? You can figure that out quickly. R180 का matrix, let's do it using matrices. R180 का matrix क्या होएगा? Let's do that. You have 1 0 and 0 1. 180 डिग्री रोटेट करते हैं, क्या आता है? -1 0 and 0 -1. Okay. What about mx? mx का क्या होता है? That's 1 0 and 0 -1. These are these two matrices, right? R180 and mx. So R180 and R and mx. This is what it is. Let's multiply them. Multiply कर लेते हैं. We get -1 plus 0, so -1, -1, 0 plus 0, so that's 0. 0 plus 0, that's also 0. 0 plus 1, so that's 1. You get this matrix. ये आपको बस matrix आ जाता है. अब आपको figure out करना है ये matrix किसको represent करता है. ये matrix कौन सी transformation को represent करता है. So -1 0. 1 0 से 0 1, 1 0 से -1 0 पे जा रहे हैं. ओके 1 0 माइनस 1 0 पे चला जाता है, 0 1 वहीं पे रहता है, 0 1 वहीं पे रहता है. So which transformation would this be? It would be a reflection in the y axis. आपको मैट्रिक्स पता है, ये मैट्रिक्स किस ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन का है? ये y एक्सिस में रिफ्लेक्शन का मैट्रिक्स है, ये y एक्सिस में रिफ्लेक्शन का मैट्रिक्स है. So that's what you write there. You say this is going to be m(y). You can also do this using matrices like this. Does this make sense? Does this make sense to everyone? So matrix से भी कर सकते हैं. Graphically, you could choose a point like that, and that will also work like that. Okay, so that's transformations. We've covered pretty much everything that you would need there. In the next session that we will have on either Thursday or Friday, we will be doing statistics and probability. We will try to do as much as possible in one single class, but if not, we will take it to the next session after that. So in one, we'll have either one or two more sessions after that. So you can join for them. For all the recordings of all the yearly past papers we've been doing, you can access, you can go to this channel and you'll find the yearly past papers there. Right, so you can access yearly past papers that we are doing in our paid group. उनकी recordings जो हैं आप वहाँ पे freely access कर सकते हैं on YouTube. You have access there.